feeling like giving up? Life's toughest moments demand inner strength, and Stoic philosophy holds the keys to finding it. In this video, we'll explore 10 powerful lessons that will help you stay strong, resilient, and unshaken when everything feels like it's falling apart. Stick around until the end, because the final lesson could be the lifeline you need right now. Number 1. Embrace adversity as a teacher. Let's talk about adversity. It's the thing nobody wants but everybody gets. You know, those moments where life feels like it's dumping all its weight on your shoulders, daring you to crumble. But here's the thing, what if adversity wasn't your enemy? What if it was your teacher, showing up uninvited to hand you some of the most valuable lessons you'll ever learn? It's tough to see it that way when you're in the middle of the storm. Pain, frustration, and setbacks don't come wrapped in a pretty bow. They come disguised as failure, rejection, or plain old bad luck. But here's the secret, every challenge is an opportunity in disguise. Yeah, I know, that sounds cliché, but stick with me. The wisdom here is deeper than a motivational quote slapped on a coffee mug. Adversity forces you to stop and think, really think. When life is easy, you cruise on autopilot. Your routines run the show, and there's no reason to question much. But throw a wrench in the works? Now you've got to pay attention. Adversity shakes you awake, whether you like it or not. It demands that you get out of your comfort zone and adapt. And let's be honest, growth never happens in comfort. Comfort is a cozy cage, adversity is the key that unlocks it. Now, don't get me wrong, embracing adversity doesn't mean you have to love it. You don't have to put on a fake smile and pretend everything's fine. It's okay to feel the sting, to be frustrated, to want to throw your hands up and quit. That's part of the process. What matters is what you do next. Are you going to sit in that pain and let it swallow you, or are you going to lean in and see what it's trying to teach you? Adversity teaches resilience. Think of it like a gym for your mind and soul. Just like lifting weights breaks down your muscles so they grow back stronger, adversity breaks down the parts of you that are weak or unprepared. It tests your limits, sure, but it also expands them. Each challenge you face, each hurdle you jump, makes you better equipped for the next one. You become stronger, sharper, more grounded. But there's another lesson here, one that's easy to miss: humility. Adversity has a way of reminding you that you're not invincible. It strips away the ego and forces you to confront your vulnerabilities. And that's not a bad thing. When you're humble, you're open to learning. You start to see that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Being a student of life means being willing to learn, even when the lessons are hard. Adversity also teaches you about gratitude. When things go wrong, you start to appreciate what's going right. It's like your senses sharpen. You notice the small things you've been taking for granted, a kind word, a moment of peace, a little victory in the chaos. And that gratitude? It's fuel. It keeps you moving forward, even when the road is rough. Finally, adversity teaches you to trust yourself. Every time you face a challenge and come out the other side, you prove to yourself that you can handle more than you thought. It builds confidence, not the flashy, loud kind, but the quiet, unshakable belief that you've got what it takes. That's powerful. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, try to see it differently. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it hurts. But within that struggle is the opportunity to grow, to learn, to become someone stronger and wiser. Embrace adversity, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Let it teach you what you need to know, even if the lessons come with a little sting. You'll come out better for it, every single time. Number 2, practice gratitude for the present moment. Let's talk about gratitude. You've probably heard it thrown around so much that it feels like a buzzword, right? But here's the thing. Gratitude isn't just some feel-good fluff, it's a power move. It's like a mental reset button. especially when life's dragging you down and you're ready to throw in the towel. When everything feels like it's crumbling, pausing to appreciate what's here, right now, is like finding a steady rock in a storm. First off, let's clear something up. Gratitude isn't about forcing yourself to love everything. That's toxic positivity, and we're not here for that. Life can suck sometimes. It's okay to feel that. Practicing gratitude isn't pretending things are fine when they're not. It's about zooming in on what's steady, what's still good, what hasn't been wrecked by the chaos around you. Think about the present moment. Not yesterday, not 5 minutes from now, right now. Close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, then keep your eyes wide open. What do you hear? Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's the hum of a fan. Maybe it's birds. Whatever it is, notice it. You're here, and that's a big deal. There's a lot to be thankful for, even in the middle of the mess. The breath in your lungs, the beat of your heart, these are gifts we forget to unwrap. Gratitude is this sneaky way of pulling your focus out of the dark spiral of what's wrong and into what's still right. It doesn't magically fix your problems, but it shifts your perspective. And perspective is everything when you're on the edge of giving up. It's like standing on a mountain, looking at the same view but from a different angle. Suddenly, the shadows don't look so overwhelming. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine if you lost everything tomorrow. Not in a dramatic, catastrophic way, but in the sense that all the little comforts and routines you take for granted just vanished. What would you miss the most? That's your gratitude list, right there. Now, flip it. All those things? You have them now. Isn't that wild? You're living the moments you'd one day wish to go back to. Gratitude also anchors you to the present. And the present? That's where your power lives. You can't change the past, it's done. You can't control the future, it's a mystery. But this moment? This is yours. And gratitude is the key to fully owning it. When you're grateful, you're not stuck in the regrets of yesterday or paralyzed by the fears of tomorrow. You're here, fully alive, in the now. That's where strength grows. And let's be real, sometimes, gratitude is hard. Some days, it feels impossible to find even one thing to be thankful for. That's okay. Start small. Start ridiculously small. I'm grateful for this cup of tea. I'm grateful for this comfy chair. I'm grateful for the fact that I woke up today. Don't judge it. Don't overthink it. Just let it be. Gratitude doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be honest. Here's the beauty of it, gratitude is contagious. The more you practice it, the more it spreads. Suddenly, you'll notice things you used to overlook. The warmth of the sun on your skin. The way your favorite song makes you feel. Even the mundane can feel extraordinary when seen through the lens of appreciation. So, the next time you feel like giving up, pause. Breathe. Look around. Find one thing, just one thing, you're grateful for in this very moment. It might not solve all your problems, but it will remind you that there's still beauty in the chaos, still light in the dark. And sometimes, that's enough to keep going. Gratitude isn't about ignoring the hard stuff, it's about finding the strength to face it. One moment at a time. Number 3, keep your emotions in check. Alright, let's talk about emotions, those messy, unpredictable little things that seem to take over when life gets tough. One moment you're calm, collected, and ready to conquer the world, and the next, you're spiraling into frustration, sadness, or even anger. And when you're on the verge of giving up, emotions can feel like the final blow, pushing you over the edge. But here's the kicker, emotions don't have to control you. Think about it. How often do we make decisions we regret because we acted on pure emotion? It's not about suppressing your feelings like some unfeeling robot, it's about understanding them, stepping back, and deciding how much power you're willing to give them. The Stoics believed emotions are just data, not commands. They're signals, yes, but they don't get to drive the car unless you hand over the keys. Now, keeping your emotions in check doesn't mean you ignore them or shove them into some imaginary box labeled "deal with later." Ignoring your feelings is like ignoring a fire alarm. Sure, the noise stops, but the fire's still burning. Instead, acknowledge your emotions. Name them. Say, "I feel overwhelmed," or "I feel frustrated." It's weirdly powerful. The act of naming what you feel creates just enough distance for you to step out of the chaos and into clarity. Here's a trick: when emotions start to bubble up, pause. Seriously. Stop whatever you're doing, even if it's mid-rant or mid-tear. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for 4, and exhale for 4. It's like hitting the reset button on your brain. This isn't just some fluffy self-help advice. It actually gives your rational brain time to catch up to your emotional brain. And when they work together, you're less likely to act impulsively or make decisions you'll kick yourself for later. You've probably heard that famous Stoic mantra, "You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond." It's true, but it's not easy. Keeping your emotions in check doesn't mean you'll magically feel better about a bad situation. No, it means you'll respond in a way that aligns with your values and goals instead of letting your emotions hijack the moment. Here's another angle to chew on: emotions aren't your enemy. They're like those overly enthusiastic friends who mean well but sometimes lead you into trouble. When you're angry, for example, it might be because you feel disrespected. When you're sad, it could be because something important to you feels out of reach. Emotions are trying to tell you something, but they don't always do it gracefully. It's your job to translate the message without letting the delivery derail you. And let's be honest, keeping your emotions in check is hard. It's not like flipping a switch. It's more like lifting emotional weights. You build strength over time. Start small. Notice when you're about to lose it over something minor, like being stuck in traffic. Instead of spiraling, ask yourself, "Is this worth my peace of mind?" Spoiler, it's probably not. When the stakes are higher, though, and you're staring down real challenges, the stakes for emotional control rise, too. This is where Stoic practices shine. Visualize the worst-case scenario. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's grounding. Imagine the thing you fear most happening. Let the fear settle, then remind yourself, "Even if this happens, I'll survive. I've survived worse." It's not about being unbothered, it's about being unbreakable. Keeping your emotions in check doesn't mean shutting them down. It means showing up for yourself in the hardest moments with the calm, steady presence of someone who refuses to let life's storms toss them around. Feel your feelings. Honor them. But don't let them dictate your story. You're the author here, and every great story has moments of struggle. Those moments are where strength is born. Number 4, remember that perseverance defines your character. Let's be real, perseverance isn't glamorous. It's not shiny, and it doesn't make for the kind of story that people gush over right away. Perseverance is gritty. It's dragging yourself through the mud when quitting would feel so much easier. It's stubborn in the best way, refusing to back down even when the odds are stacked against you. But here's the kicker, that relentless drive to keep going, even when everything inside you screams to stop, that's what shapes who you are. Think about it. Who are you when things get hard? That's the real question. Anyone can be upbeat and optimistic when life is going smoothly. It's easy to show up with confidence when success feels inevitable. But when the road gets rough, when you're staring down failure or exhaustion or doubt, how you choose to respond in that moment. That's the stuff that defines your character. Perseverance isn't about winning every time or even succeeding right away. It's about showing up. Again. And again. and again. It's about holding the line, standing firm, and refusing to let setbacks define your story. Sure, the world might knock you down hard. But perseverance says, fine. Let me catch my breath, and I'll be back. It's not just about resilience, either. Perseverance runs deeper. It's not just bouncing back, it's pressing forward, inch by inch, step by step, even when the finish line is nowhere in sight. And let's be honest, sometimes you won't even know if the finish line exists. That's the paradox, right? You have to keep going, not because you're guaranteed to win, but because stopping would mean betraying yourself. The truth is, perseverance doesn't just reveal your character, it builds it. Each time you push through the discomfort, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more. Every moment you choose effort over ease, you strengthen the muscles of discipline, grit, and determination. It's like forging steel in a fire. It's the heat, the pressure, the relentless hammering that makes it strong. Without the struggle, there's no growth. But let's not romanticize it too much. Perseverance is messy. It doesn't always feel noble or inspiring. Sometimes it feels like you're just trudging forward out of sheer stubbornness, dragging your doubts and fears behind you. That's okay. You don't have to feel heroic to be persevering. In fact, most of the time, it won't feel like much of anything, just work. Just one more step. Just a refusal to quit. And that's the magic of it. The quiet, unrelenting decision to keep going is what makes it so powerful. Here's another thing, perseverance teaches you patience. And let's face it, patience is underrated. We live in a world that loves instant results, but the best things, real growth, real success, real change, take time. Perseverance forces you to accept that time is part of the process. It humbles you, reminds you that good things are earned, not given. And in that waiting, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. And there's a confidence that grows from perseverance, not the flashy, loud kind that needs to announce itself, but the quiet, steady belief that you can handle whatever comes. You've been through the fire before, and you'll make it through again. Perseverance doesn't promise that the road will get easier, it promises that you will get stronger. So, when you feel like giving up, ask yourself this: who do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who stops when things get hard, or someone who pushes through no matter what? Every time you choose perseverance, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And over time, those votes add up. You don't just persevere because it's the right thing to do, you persevere because it's how you build a life and a character you're proud of. Number 5. Visualize potential obstacles to prepare mentally. Life isn't a smooth highway, it's more like a rocky trail full of twists, potholes, and unexpected dead ends. The Stoics got it. They knew you couldn't just waltz into the future thinking everything will go your way. That's a surefire recipe for heartbreak. Instead, they had this genius approach called premeditatio malorum, fancy Latin for thinking about the bad stuff before it happens. Sounds a bit grim, right? But hear me out. It's not about being pessimistic, it's about being ready. Picture this: you're standing on the starting line of something big, a goal, a dream, a project. Excitement is buzzing in your veins. But hold up. Before you sprint off, take a moment to imagine the hurdles. What could go wrong? What could slow you down? Maybe it's your motivation fizzling out halfway through. Maybe it's unexpected criticism that hits harder than you'd like. Maybe it's 100 little annoyances piling up until they feel unbearable. Don't just glance at these possibilities. Dive in. Play them out in your mind like a movie, scene by scene. Why do this? Because when you see the obstacles coming, they're less likely to knock you off balance. Think of it like training for a fight. If you know your opponent's moves, you're not caught off guard. The mental punches land softer. You've rehearsed your response. You're ready to pivot. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This exercise isn't about fixating on failure. It's about learning how to dance with it. When you visualize the hard stuff, you're not just imagining problems, you're also imagining solutions. You're creating a mental toolbox. If this happens, then I'll do that. If plan A goes sideways, there's a plan B waiting in the wings. And plan C, if it comes to that. You're stacking the deck in your favor. But don't stop there. Visualization isn't just a mental rehearsal, it's an emotional one, too. Ask yourself, how will I feel when these obstacles show up? Frustrated? Discouraged? Maybe even angry? Let those emotions bubble up. Feel them. Then, imagine yourself handling them like a pro. Picture yourself staying calm, composed, unshaken. You're teaching your mind to respond with resilience instead of panic. Now, you might be thinking, won't this make me more anxious? Fair question. But here's the thing, fear thrives in the unknown. When you've already mapped out the potential pitfalls, they lose some of their power. They're no longer shadowy monsters lurking in the dark. They're just challenges you've already thought about. And challenges? Those you can handle. Another cool thing about this practice is that it makes success feel earned. When you anticipate the tough spots and face them head-on, the victory at the end tastes so much sweeter. It's not just a win, it's a win you fought for, prepared for, deserved. And that's the kind of success that sticks with you. Keep in mind, though, this isn't about getting stuck in the negative. Don't let the obstacles become the star of the show. They're just supporting characters in the bigger story of you crushing your goals. Spend time visualizing the challenges, sure, but spend even more time imagining yourself overcoming them. See yourself pushing through, finding solutions, and coming out stronger on the other side. So, the next time you're about to tackle something big, take a pause. Close your eyes. Think about the road ahead, not just the good parts, but the tricky ones, too. Picture the setbacks, the moments when you'll want to quit, the curveballs that might come your way. And then, visualize yourself handling it all like the unshakable force you are. Obstacles aren't there to stop you, they're there to show you just how far you're willing to go. Number 6, reflect on mortality to gain perspective and focus. Let's get real for a second. How often do you think about the fact that your time here is limited? Like, actually think about it. Not in a gloomy, doom and gloom kind of way, but in a way that wakes you up. Most of us, if we're being honest, avoid the topic altogether. It's uncomfortable. It's heavy. But here's the twist, reflecting on mortality isn't about fear, it's about clarity. The Stoics had this practice they called memento mori, which translates to remember you must die. Sounds harsh, right? But it's not some morbid obsession. It's a reminder that life isn't endless, that every tick of the clock is one less you'll hear. And before you spiral into existential dread, think about what this really means. If you truly grasp that your time is finite, doesn't it make sense to focus on what actually matters? When you're standing on the edge of giving up, it's easy to feel like the walls are closing in. Everything feels so big, so overwhelming, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But take a step back and ask yourself, in the grand scheme of things, how much does this really matter? That argument, that failure, that setback, it might feel monumental now, but is it worth spending your limited time obsessing over? Probably not. Thinking about mortality gives you a bird's-eye view of your life. It forces you to zoom out. When you remember that you've only got so many days, it's like wiping smudges off a foggy window. Suddenly, you see what's important, the people you love, the goals that light you up, the experiences you want to savor. Everything else? Noise. Here's the thing, though, reflecting on mortality doesn't mean walking around in a constant state of YOLO. It's deeper than that. It's about aligning your actions with what you truly value. When you remember that time is slipping through your fingers, you start cutting out the fluff. You stop wasting energy on things that don't serve you, and you start showing up fully for the things that do. But let's get real, thinking about death isn't always easy. It can stir up some heavy emotions. That's okay. Lean into that discomfort. It's there to teach you something. When you face the reality of your mortality, you're forced to confront the parts of your life you've been avoiding. Are you spending your time wisely? Are you chasing things that genuinely fulfill you, or are you stuck in a loop of distractions and obligations? These questions can be uncomfortable, sure, but they're also the ones that spark real change. And when the going gets tough, when you're ready to throw in the towel, remembering your mortality can be the jolt you need to keep going. Think about it, if this life is the only one you've got, don't you owe it to yourself to make it count? Don't you owe it to yourself to push through the hard moments so you can experience the beauty on the other side? It's not about living every day like it's your last. That's unrealistic and honestly exhausting. It's about living with intention. It's about reminding yourself that the clock is ticking, not as a threat, but as motivation. Every minute you spend doubting yourself or dwelling on setbacks is a minute you'll never get back. So, when you're tempted to give up, pause. Take a deep breath and remind yourself, this moment won't last forever, and neither will I. Use that thought as fuel. Let it sharpen your focus, strip away the nonsense, and guide you back to what really matters. Because at the end of the day, the fact that life is finite isn't something to fear, it's something to celebrate. It's what makes every step, every choice, and every victory so incredibly precious. Number 7, understand the fleeting nature of recognition and praise. Let's get something straight, chasing recognition and praise. It's a never-ending treadmill. It might feel good in the moment, getting that nod of approval, hearing someone tell you well done. But how long does that feeling actually last? A few minutes? Maybe an hour? And then what? You're right back where you started, looking for the next hit, the next validation to keep you going. The truth is, recognition is like smoke. It looks solid from a distance, but when you try to grab it, it slips right through your fingers. Praise can be addictive like that, and the danger is that it can trick you into thinking it's the goal. It's not. The real goal is bigger, deeper, more meaningful than someone else's applause. Recognition is just the garnish on the plate, not the meal itself. Here's the thing, praise is not under your control. Think about it. People's opinions shift like the wind, and trying to keep up with them is exhausting. One day you're on top of the world, and the next, someone finds something else, or someone else, to celebrate. If your motivation comes from outside approval, you're handing over the reins of your happiness to forces you can't predict or control. Why would you do that to yourself? Now, this doesn't mean praise is bad or that you should reject it outright. It's okay to enjoy it. It's okay to feel good when someone recognizes your hard work or achievements. The problem comes when you let it define you. If your sense of worth is tied to how much recognition you get, you're building a house on shaky ground. One bad day, one moment where the applause fades, and suddenly, you're questioning everything. What the Stoics teach us is that real strength comes from focusing on what's within your control. And guess what? Recognition isn't on that list. Your actions, your effort, your dedication, those are the things you own. Those are the things that matter. When you understand that, the need for praise starts to lose its grip on you. Let's be honest, though. It's not easy. We're wired to seek approval. It feels good to be seen, to be acknowledged. That's natural. But here's where the shift happens. Instead of craving recognition, you learn to create your own validation. You set your standards. You decide what success looks like for you, and you work toward that. Not for the applause. Not for the likes or the comments or the pats on the back, but because it's what matters to you. And here's the beauty of it. When you let go of the need for recognition, you free yourself. You stop performing for an audience and start living authentically. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "What do I think?" That's a powerful place to be. The fleeting nature of recognition also teaches you something important about perspective. If the praise is temporary, so are the criticisms. The same people who might overlook your efforts today might celebrate you tomorrow, and vice versa. So why let their opinions dictate your journey? Life is too short and too unpredictable to give that kind of power to anyone else. At the end of the day, recognition and praise are just noise. They're the background chatter of life, not the main event. The real work happens in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when it's just you and your effort. That's where character is built. That's where strength is forged. Recognition might come, and it might go, but the value of what you do, of who you become in the process, will always be yours. So, remind yourself, the goal isn't to be noticed. The goal is to be proud of the work you've done, to know in your heart that you gave it your all. Recognition fades. Character lasts. Choose wisely. Number 8. Build a strong inner fortress of values and principles. Life has this uncanny way of testing you when you least expect it. One moment, you're cruising along, and the next, it feels like everything is crumbling. The Stoics knew this all too well, and they had a timeless response: fortify your inner self. Think of your values and principles as the foundation of an unshakable fortress, one that stands tall no matter how fierce the storm. Without it, you're like a house of cards, one gust, and it's game over. So, what does it mean to build an inner fortress? It's about knowing who you are and what you stand for. Sounds simple, right? But let's be real, how often do we actually sit down and ask ourselves, what do I truly believe in? Most of us are too caught up in the noise of the world to reflect on these deeper questions. But here's the catch: if you don't define your values, life will do it for you, and trust me, you don't want to live by someone else's script. Start with this: what's non-negotiable for you? Integrity? Kindness? Perseverance? Write it down, let it sink in, and let it guide you. Your values should be like the roots of a mighty tree, deep, unwavering, and the source of your strength when the winds of life try to uproot you. But let's get practical. Building an inner fortress isn't just about listing virtues like it's some self-help checklist. It's about living them. If you say you value honesty, then speak the truth, even when it's hard. If you believe in resilience, don't just nod at the word, practice it when life feels like quicksand. These principles need to be alive in you, shaping your decisions and your actions. Otherwise, they're just empty words. Here's the thing, though, it's not enough to simply adopt values because they sound nice. You've got to wrestle with them, test them, see if they truly resonate with your core. The Stoics didn't believe in blind acceptance. They questioned everything until they arrived at their truth. Do the same. Reflect. Challenge. Evolve. This process of refinement is how your fortress becomes stronger, brick by brick. And let's talk about why this fortress is so important when you're on the verge of giving up. When the going gets tough, and it will, your principles are what keep you steady. They're like a compass when you're lost in the fog. Without them, you're just drifting, reacting to whatever life throws at you. But with them, you're grounded. You have something to hold on to, something that reminds you why you started, why you keep going. Think of values as a filter, too. They help you separate what truly matters from the distractions and noise. When you're clear on your principles, the petty stuff, the criticism, the setbacks, the doubts, loses its grip on you. You don't waste energy on things that don't align with your foundation. You stay focused, determined, unshaken. Now, don't mistake this for rigidity. A strong fortress isn't a rigid one, it's flexible where it needs to be. Life will throw situations at you that challenge even your most deeply held beliefs. And that's okay. Growth happens when you're willing to adapt while staying true to your essence. It's a balance, firm where it matters, adaptable where it counts. So, how do you start? Take a moment to reflect. Strip away the noise of expectations, social pressures, and fleeting trends. Ask yourself, what's at my core? What values will I carry with me, no matter what? Then, commit to living those values every day. Not perfectly, because perfection isn't the goal, but authentically. When you build that inner fortress, you're not just preparing for the hard times, you're also creating a sanctuary for yourself. A place where you can retreat, recharge, and remind yourself that no matter what life throws your way, you've got a foundation that's unshakable. And that's how you stay strong when the world wants you to crumble. Number 9, accept the inevitability of change and loss. Alright, let's rip off the band-aid. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing. Not the good stuff, not the bad stuff, not the moments you want to freeze in time, and not the ones you're desperate to escape. Change is the rule, not the exception. And loss? Well, that's just part of the deal. But here's the catch, fighting against that truth only makes life harder. When you're at your breaking point, ready to give up, it's often because something has shifted. Maybe you've lost something, an opportunity, a sense of security, or a relationship. Or maybe change has barged into your life uninvited, flipping everything upside down. It's painful. It feels unfair. And let's be honest, it's tempting to throw your hands up and say, what's the point? But here's the thing, resisting change doesn't stop it. Ignoring loss doesn't erase it. It's like standing in the ocean and trying to stop the waves with your bare hands. You're just going to exhaust yourself. Instead, what if you leaned into the tide? What if you accepted that the waves are going to come, whether you like it or not? Now, don't get me wrong. Accepting the inevitability of change and loss doesn't mean pretending it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean slapping on a fake smile and saying, "Oh, it's fine." No. It's about acknowledging the pain without letting it paralyze you. It's about realizing that loss is part of the human experience, not some personal vendetta the universe has against you. The Stoics had this idea called amor fati, which means love your fate. Not just tolerate it. Love it. That's a tall order, isn't it? Loving the things that disrupt your plans or break your heart? It sounds impossible. But it's not about being happy when things fall apart, it's about finding meaning in the chaos. It's about seeing every twist and turn, even the painful ones, as part of the bigger story. Change is scary because it's unpredictable. Loss is devastating because it feels final. But here's the paradox, both of these things also create space. When something ends, something else begins. When life shifts, it opens doors you didn't even know were there. The Stoics weren't saying you should celebrate loss or dance in the face of change. They were saying you should trust that these things have a purpose, even if it's not immediately clear. Let's flip the script for a second. Imagine a world where nothing ever changed. Everything stayed exactly the same, frozen in time. Sounds peaceful, right? But think about it, no growth, no surprises, no new chapters. Life would be flat, stagnant, and, frankly, kind of boring. Change, as painful as it can be, is what keeps things moving. It's what keeps life interesting. And loss? Loss reminds us to cherish what we have while we have it. It teaches us not to take things for granted. Sure, it's painful to say goodbye to people, to places, to phases of your life, but that pain is proof that those things mattered. Would you trade those experiences just to avoid the hurt of losing them? Probably not. When you accept the inevitability of change and loss, something incredible happens. You start to let go of the need for control. You stop clinging to the way things should be and start embracing the way they are. You stop wasting energy fighting against reality and start using that energy to adapt, to grow, to move forward. So, when you feel like giving up because everything seems to be falling apart, take a step back. Remind yourself, this is temporary. This is part of the process. Let go of what's gone, not because it didn't matter, but because clinging to it only keeps you stuck. Trust that change, no matter how disruptive, is carrying you somewhere you're meant to go. And loss? Loss isn't the end. It's just the start of a new chapter, one you're strong enough to write. Number 10. Cultivate inner resilience through self-discipline. Here's a hard truth: resilience isn't something you just stumble upon. It's not some magical gift that only a lucky few are born with. Resilience is built, brick by brick, habit by habit, decision by decision. And the foundation of it all? Self-discipline. Yeah, it doesn't sound sexy or exciting, but let me tell you, it's the key to staying strong when life feels like it's falling apart. Self-discipline is about more than just willpower. It's not a quick burst of motivation or a single act of grit. It's a steady, consistent choice to show up for yourself every single day, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. It's the quiet force that keeps you grounded, focused, and moving forward when everything around you screams give up. Now, let's break this down. What does cultivating resilience through self-discipline really look like? It's not about being perfect or turning yourself into a machine. It's about creating small, intentional habits that align with your values and goals. It's about sticking to those habits, even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching, even when the results aren't immediate. Because let's face it, most of the time, resilience isn't flashy. It's not about dramatic comebacks or big wins. It's about the quiet, unglamorous work that happens in the background. Here's the thing: self-discipline strengthens your inner resilience because it teaches you how to handle discomfort. Life is full of it: stress, setbacks, uncertainty. And let's be real, most of us are wired to avoid discomfort at all costs. But self-discipline flips the script. It teaches you to lean into the discomfort, to sit with it, to move through it instead of running away. And guess what? The more you do that, the less scary discomfort becomes. You start to realize it's not the enemy, it's the proving ground for your strength. Another thing self-discipline does? It helps you stay focused on what truly matters. When the going gets tough, it's easy to get distracted, to lose sight of your goals, to let fear or frustration pull you off track. But self-discipline acts like a compass. It keeps you pointed in the right direction, reminding you of why you started in the first place. It's that little voice in your head saying, "This is hard, but you've got this. Just keep going." And let's not forget about the confidence it builds. Every time you stick to a commitment, no matter how small, you're sending yourself a powerful message: I can trust myself. That's huge. Because when you trust yourself, when you know you can rely on your own strength and discipline, you become unstoppable. The world can throw whatever it wants at you, and you'll stand firm, knowing you have what it takes to handle it. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: self-discipline isn't easy. It's not supposed to be. There will be days when it feels impossible, when the excuses pile up, when quitting feels like the only option. But here's the good news: you don't have to get it right every time. Building resilience isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, trying again, and refusing to quit on yourself. Start small. Pick one thing, a habit, a goal, a commitment, and stick to it. It doesn't have to be grand or impressive. What matters is the consistency. Because every act of self-discipline, no matter how tiny, adds a little more strength to your inner core. And over time, those small acts add up to something unshakable. So, when you're standing on the edge, when giving up feels like the easiest option, remember this: resilience isn't about the big gestures. It's about the little ones, repeated over and over. It's about the discipline to keep going, no matter what. That's how you cultivate strength. That's how you build a life that can weather any storm. When life feels overwhelming, strength lies in the lessons we embrace. If these Stoic principles reignited your resilience, don't keep them to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more wisdom to keep you going. Stay strong, and let's grow together.